Chapter 7, Thinking Machines. Listening to AI and the Fate of Humanity.
Some people think that some of these things are sort of science fiction-y, far out there, crazy.
Ripple effect.
The fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does. Think about it. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make. And the outcome could have potentially enormous consequences.
Well, that is Nick Bostrom, a philosopher, a technologist, and one of the world's big thinkers on artificial intelligence, or AI. As he says, AI has the potential to shape the fate of humanity. It's predicted that sometime in the next 25 years or so, AI machines will match and in some ways surpass human intelligence. And the potential ripple effects of that are staggering. Corporations and governments are now spending billions of dollars on developing bigger and smarter AI technology. The goal is to create machines that think for themselves. But some warn that could go terribly wrong. And the warning is being sounded by the likes of Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Stephen Hawking.
The primitive forms of artificial intelligence we already have proved very useful. But I think the development of full artificial intelligence could spell the end of the human race. Once humans develop artificial intelligence, it would take off on its own and redesign itself at an ever-increasing rate. Humans, who are limited by slow biological evolution, couldn't compete and would be superseded.
Okay, well, the thoughts of Stephen Hawking there. Averting that disaster is where Nick Bostrom comes in. He's the founding director of the Future of Humanity Institute, which is based at Oxford University and Oxford, England. It's an institution dedicated to making sure we get it right when it comes to creating super intelligent computers. Nick Bostrom joins me from Oxford, England. Hello.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm listening to Stephen Hawking there. That's pretty scary stuff. At the end of the human race?
I think one has to look at it in the larger context here, where development of greater than human machine intelligence really would be a unique event in the history of life. If you think about what it is that makes us humans have this unique position on our planet, it's not that we have stronger muscles or sharper teeth, it's that our brains were really just slightly cleverer than those of our great ape ancestors. And that has enabled us to develop all this technology, complex societies, and the rest of it. So if machines one day came to exceed human intelligence, then it seems plausible that they also might be able to shape the future according to their preferences. Certainly that transition looks like it could be an extremely important one.
So before we go over any further, take me inside the Future of Humanity Institute. How do you spend your days doing things? What are you thinking and talking about?
The Future of Humanity Institute is a multidisciplinary research center here at Oxford University. We have mathematicians, computer scientists, philosophers, economists trying to think carefully about big picture questions for humanity. And that includes as one major focus, the future of artificial intelligence. The reason for spending a lot of time thinking about the future of AI is that we have this concept of an existential risk. An existential risk being a way that things could go wrong that would either cause human extinction or would otherwise permanently destroy the long-term potential for Earth-originating intelligent life. So there's never been an existential catastrophe in all of human history, or we wouldn't be here any longer, and there will only ever have been either zero or one of these. But if you think about the expected value of such a thing, the amount of value on the line, if one of these occurred, so we tried to focus a lot of our research on trying to figure out what the main existential risks are, and more importantly, what we can do to reduce them. It looks to us like all the really big existential risks, certainly over a time scale of a few centuries or so, will arise from powerful new technological innovations that the human species might make. There are existential risks from nature, the asteroids and supervolcanic eruptions and so on and so forth, but we've survived those for 100,000 years already, so they just don't seem that likely to do us in within the next century. But we will introduce entirely new kinds of hazards into the world through our creativity and ingenuity.
How far away are we from creating super intelligent computers that can think as well as a human?
Nobody knows. We did a survey, though, a couple of years ago where we asked some of the world's leading AI experts what they thought about this. Specifically, we asked, by which year do you think there is a 50% probability that we will have human-level machine intelligence? We defined human level here as the ability to perform practically every job, at least as well as a normal human. And the median answer to that question was 2040 or 2045, depending on precisely which group of experts we asked. But there is huge uncertainty. It could happen a lot sooner, or it could take a lot longer as well. There is certainly a non-trivial chance of it happening within the lifetime of some people who live on this planet today.
And what would be the next step, the so-called intelligence explosion?
Yeah, so in terms of timelines, two questions. One is, how far are we currently from sort of human-level AIs that can do all that we can do? If and when we do reach that level of capability, then a second question is, how long will it take from that point until we have computers that are radically super intelligent? I think that there is a good chance that that second step from human level to radical superintelligence might be quite short. It might take a long time to get to human level AI, but once we are there, I think superintelligence will follow close on the heels.
And what could that look like?
At that point, you really have the automation of all human intellectual labor. Just as the Industrial Revolution automated many forms of human physical labor. So we no longer needed horses or muscle power to drive the factories. With general machine intelligence, you would have a similar phenomenon for intellectual labor. To us, there seems to be a giant difference between the village idiot and Albert Einstein in terms of intelligence. We think of those as the opposite ends of the sort of intelligence spectrum. You have dumb and smart. But if instead we're thinking about how hard would it be to replicate the performance of one of these individuals on a computer, it might be approximately as hard to develop an AI that can do what the village idiot can do as to develop an AI that can do what Einstein can do. If you think about the village idiot and Einstein, they have almost exactly the same brain. Like, it's still a 3-pound lumpy cheese of matter with approximately the same number of neurons operating at approximately the same speed. There really isn't that much different from a basic physiological point of view between different human brains. And that accounts for all these differences we see in human performance. And it might well be that if you think of AI development as a train that starts maybe 60 or 70 years ago from zero capability when we first developed computers, and then rolling along the track, gradually getting more capable, maybe now we are at sort of the level of a spider or a mouse or something like that. At some point we will reach Humanville station, but the train might not slow down there. It might just swoosh right past into radically super intelligent territory. At least I think that's a fairly plausible class of scenarios that one should take seriously.
This is fascinating. Would we then be creating, in effect, a new life form?
The concept of life is really not that clearly defined, so it depends on what you sort of bake into it. So, some people think that life is defined by being this evolutionary process involving reproduction and death, and AI don't need to be exactly like that. It would certainly be a new form of intelligence that could have massive impacts on the world, including all kinds of new technologies. And so that's why in that clip you played earlier, I said that it's the last invention that humans will ever need to make. Once you have a machine intelligence that is better at the inventing than we are, then our efforts become obsolete from that point on.
That is so profound.
Yes. Once you have superintelligence, you might soon get technological maturity. That is, all the possible technologies that we can see would be consistent with the laws of physics, basic material constraints, but that we just haven't figured out how to build yet. All of those possible technologies might become available shortly after you have super intelligent artificial minds doing the research and development.
And so let's get back to your institute. How do we make sure these machines are essentially on our side, that they will have the best interests of humanity at heart?
The answer to that is not known. The challenge of how to ensure that a super intelligent machine would actually be human friendly, that it would be on our side, is one that's going to involve a lot of possibly difficult technical challenges. And hopefully we will have solved those technical challenges by the time somebody figures out how to make machines that smart. But there is no guarantee of that, because there is really this race on. There's a lot of people who are working on trying to make machines smarter, and there is a much smaller number of people who are trying to figure out, if you really succeeded in making machines truly smart, how could you then have those really smart machines being safe?
Can a machine have values or ethics in the way humans have?
In principle, I see no reason why they couldn't. So already today we can construct very simple artificial agents. You can give them different goals, different preferences, and they will then use these preferences. They form the criteria by which they decide which course of action, which plan looks more promising than another. So the question is how you can scale that up so that it will also work when we have far more powerful intellect.
Can a machine be programmed or motivated to defer to humans' interest?
I'm sure that there is some way for this to happen. Ideally, it works on the first try. Like, you don't want to have a number of different superintelligences where your control method fails, and then, maybe eventually on the 20th attempt, you finally succeed. We might only get one shot at this. Generally speaking, though, I think it's fair to say that the idea that we could create some explicit list of everything we care about, or some rules that would cover all possible cases that might arise, and have that be the control system for a superintelligence is hopeless. That just won't happen. You might have heard of these Asimov's laws of robotics. So it's a science fiction author, Isaac Asimov, who wrote a lot of novels, and in those novels he had stories about robots, and they were supposed to be guided by 3 inviolable laws. You must not allow humanity to come to harm. You must not allow any individual human to come to harm. You must obey human orders and protect your own survival. But then his stories really are exploring the different ways in which conflicts can arise between these rules and how they can have unanticipated consequences. That general approach does not look promising. What looks more promising is the idea of using the AI's own intelligence to learn human values, to learn human preferences.
And well, of course, and that raises a question, whose human values will it learn?
Indeed, yes. So there really are two big problems, 2 big questions. One is this technical question, which is, supposing you knew precisely what value, what goal you would want the AI to pursue, would you get that goal into the AI? But assuming a solution to that technical problem, then you're absolutely right. There is this second problem that arises, which is the political problem, really, of like, which values do we decide to promote with the AI?
And then you only get a chance to solve the second problem once.
Potentially.
And it raises all these questions. Last year I spoke to Geoffrey Hinton, a Canadian so-called godfather of deep thinking. We were talking about his concerns over AI. Listen to what he says about the politics.
The outcome of the advance of artificial intelligence will depend a lot on the political system and how it gets used. I think it's extremely important. It's as important as the technology itself. Taking all the funding out of social sciences and putting it into hard sciences is probably a mistake. We need to fund social scientists to figure out how this stuff's going to be used and how best to use it. It ought to be that when you get these wonderful new abilities, it's good for people. We need a political system where it's going to be good for people when we get better at doing things rather than bad for people.
So, Nick Bostrom, what do you think? It kind of dovetails with what you're saying about the sort of the mix of people you have at your institute, the role of social scientists and politicians and philosophers in all of this.
Yeah, so I think all of those kinds of expertise could be relevant in different ways. Then there are other problems that humanity have that are more a matter of will and preference. So you have coordination problems, problems of war and peace, justice versus injustice, where it's not obvious that there is a technical fix, but where you might really need people to politically come together to get behind some kind of approach that gives everybody a fair share. And so those are the kinds of questions that are not automatically solved just by having higher levels of intelligence or higher levels of knowledge.